Hello, this is Thomas Bangalter.
I'm Devonté Hynes, and this is the A24 podcast. And we're live.
We're live, yes. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. I feel I got invited about an invite, so it feels like there's a meta quality to it because you just scored the invite from Olivia Wilde.
Yes. Yeah.
And which I was invited to see, and I enjoyed it very much.
Cool. Okay,
I
great.
think it's a terrific film.
Yeah,
Amazing performances, amazing cast.
Yes.
I have this connection with Olivia because she was in Tron Legacy, and we scored Tron Legacy.
Tron Legacy.
The Disney film from 2010, and it's funny because with Guiman, I worked on this film for maybe a year and a half. There was no temp music, so we were really creating some music before the film shoot started, and also some music while we had a first cut. And so a lot of the music was with Olivia's face on a blue screen, for months, and Jeff Bridges and Garrett as well. So it was super cool and exciting to see her masterfully direct this film.
And she's an incredible director.
Masterful performances from her and her cast.
Yeah.
And an amazing score. And I have some questions about the score.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
First, I think I prefer not to spoil anything about the film. I think there's so many plot twists, and it's entertaining and it's moving, and I want to speak more about the relationship with the film, but without speaking too much about the film.
Yeah, it's tricky. I just did a interview about the film and realized it's hard to talk about a film without.
Yeah, and also it's funny because I feel, I've always loved Andy Warhol and Interview magazine, and this idea of like artists interviewing and discussing, and it's fun because here it's a podcast, and I don't know who's interviewing who.
Yes, I know.
But I have questions because obviously I love the process and the creative process. I'm not going to spoil it too much if I say it's almost a single cello.
No, it's okay. Yeah, you
score.
can say that. Yeah.
But and I know you're a cellist, but can you tell me a little bit more about what was the idea behind it?
So I kind of put the idea out while I was talking to Olivia. I'd seen the first 10 minutes of the film. She showed it to me, and then she told me how essentially the whole film kind of takes place in this apartment. And so I started thinking about plays and the idea of quote unquote live instrumentation. And also this idea of in relationships, and how some moments are so dramatic and they feel life and death and very intense, and when partners start bickering and someone gets their feelings hurt, and the emotion feels, I don't know, if I think of like operas or something like it to that person it feels so much grander than maybe what the actual thing was. And so I started thinking about, initially I actually did think about opera as a first kind of world the score could live in, almost not making fun of the situation, but somewhat over dramatizing it. And then I thought that was maybe too grand. And then I was saying a lot of ideas, and then at one point I just said, oh, maybe it's all of it is cello. And she loved that idea.
So it was your idea.
Yeah.
I think what I find the most exciting and compelling is the way that it interacts with the dialogue on such a precise and almost choreographed way. I mean, right now I'm really myself immersed in contemporary dance and ballet music, and I really felt that there was this connection where you have these four characters, and and the music and the performance of the cello and the music writing and the nuance, it kind of operates on a level where it's like an accompaniment to the dance, you know, of that thing. And so I was like, wow, there's a way of choreographic nature, and at the same time, you have two levels of reality in it, where you have, I mean, it starts, it's not maybe spoiling it too much, with this kind of couple argument, and which is spontaneous in nature, although you don't know if it's spontaneous or if it's a repetition and a certain, pattern. But the way there's this kind of punctuation or counterpoint of the notes, and the way they're inter I don't know in English, interweaved or interweaved in the dialogue. That was kind of fascinating to me, because I was like, was there any tap music or any music on those sequences when you watch them?
You know, some moments had, but a lot of moments didn't, and it's cool that you see it that way, because it is a dance. I think especially with films that are play-like in that way, where you do have these, a set number of characters, and they're physically interacting with each other, and obviously in dialogue too. And I think that's why I wanted the music to be observing.
Yeah, there's almost when you say that, it almost feels like it's a demonstration of the power and nuance and the possibilities of the cello in some way, almost like an electrocardiogram. You know, where you could have like this the guinea pigs. And you have this tension between those characters, the way it starts, and you basically have you as a musician that almost punctuates in very precise way the mood, and helps guide it without. And I really liked, especially the way, I always feel it's really hard when you make film scores to not manipulate emotionally, harmonically the audience, and I really feel it was very successful in the first act, for example, because after there are emotions, and it kind of flourishes, but to be able to work with that tension and those shifts and things like that. Great. But the most interesting thing for me was really the interaction with the dialogue. And it's quite prominent, but it flows super cool. It makes me think about something going back to Tron. I remember when the idea of a Disney film with Daft Punk here was to me using a full symphonic orchestra. So that was the idea, and I think director Joe initially was like, oh no, I want you guys to do a full electronic score. And I was like, no, that if we do a full electronic, I mean, at the time it was 20, I'd done like music for like 15 years, full electronic. No, we're going to Hollywood. We're going to use like Fantasia, like it's Disney. It's like full orchestra. But I remember that I had this idea that with Kiman, we were discussing how to put some electronics sound in the mid-range, So I remember before going to we were in Paris, and I spent like 4 months designing synth sounds. So also initially I was like, I had this big modular system, and I realized because we wouldn't have to go through so many recalls and change and stuff, that we couldn't really use this big synth, which is non-recallable. Yeah. So I remember like doing this palette and of sounds, and but the problem was that when we started to experiment with picture, anything that was in the medium range frequentially would conflict with dialogue.
Of course.
And then we ended up only using in Tron, if you listen to the whole thing, this bass, pulsing bass, more like kind of almost the pitch, I think, for Tron was a mix between again, Fantasia and Bernard Herrmann and John Carpenter or something, where you do those kind of pulses. But it was so limiting to feel like, oh yeah, I have all these ideas about things that we can really make music. But the whole thing about film score music is to take a step back and have the performance and not be in the way.
Yeah.
And here I was like, wow, the interesting thing also is the cello has a very big range. Frequentially, from like bass to kind of high. And somehow you nail the ability to be there, really there, but to kind of like almost be a fifth person, in some way. But to not like be in the way. I actually really liked at some point when there's a few of these moments where even you become louder than the dialogue themselves, and it feels like, okay, now but it creates the right amount of drama or tension at that point, more through intensity than through any kind of harmonic. And at the same time, there's not a lot of harmonic because it's also a monophonic score where you have sometimes a double, double strings. But I really appreciated this idea of saying, wow, there's not actually a lot of monophonic instrument that have that power of nuance.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting what you said about the frequencies, and also so in the Tron film, I want to go back and look at that now. So the synth elements are away from the dialogue, essentially.
Well, the synth elements are low in the range because all the medium synth element ideas that we had or I had, they would hide the dialogue, So there was this. So if you listen to it, actually, there's no, the electronics in the way they send. They're really in the low register. Yeah, in like the basses or double basses, and somehow it's almost reinventing the wheel, because I was like, okay, now I realize why 90% of orchestral film score are mostly string based, because there's like this magic chemistry between strings and dialogue, and almost this kind of like frequency curve where there's this ability to have dialogue and strings not in the way, on this thing. So it's always very depressing, actually, when you have all these ideas and you say, okay, I'm gonna bring that, and you end up almost have to go back to a more traditional way of doing it, because you're like, well, the tradition is not just it's not just rules, it's sometimes like common sense. It's this idea of saying, okay, we've tried that and it doesn't work.
The new ballet score you did, is that all electronic?
Yes. So the previous ballet one, Mythologies, that I did was a symphonic score. I don't have any classical training like you do.
I mean, I have minor.
Yes, but you play the cello, and I played piano. My mother was a dancer, and I played piano with the teacher, which was the rehearsal piano player from the Paris Opera. Oh, wow. And I did that from 6 years old to 11, and at 11 I stopped. But after this kind of symphonic detour for that previous ballet, here I wanted to go back to electronic music, and with a lot of inspiration from especially this a Greek composer, Giannis Xenakis, that was an architect, and that was drawing symphonic scores, with clusters and lines. And then after, in the 80s, it developed those tools about a graphic tablet where you could draw music on an XY axis with a frequency and time, and doing chromatic music, but microtonal music, and all kind of things. And I've been experimenting with these tools. And for this process, I was like, wow, it was a ballet in Japan. with Damien Jallet, that is an amazing Belgian choreographer. He did the Romain Gavras Younglin music video,
okay, yeah.
With the
Yeah.
dancer, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
And Koenawa, which is a Japanese visual artist, and they've been working, and this is a ballet called Mirage. And the whole idea was going back to this, era of musique concrète and experimentation and really like sonic research, but using these graphic tablets to create those sounds which you don't know whether they're electronic or acoustics.
Yeah.
So having made electronic music and music for so long, is at some point my listening was almost analytical, where I could decompose anything. I know what synthesizer it is, or I know what drum machine. And so that's why it got me a little bit further from electronic music, where it feels like it doesn't gel, or it's not the mystery anymore. And here it was more about, with this tool, I can imagine, not like synesthesia, but being in something where you can hear and picture it like impossible or new instruments that do not exist, almost like some weird, like super 1,000 tubular bells, super high pitched, or drones or things. And to me, it was more, the whole thing it's called Mirage, about perception. Is there a way to still create electronic textures that can surprise myself? Because I'm always kind of a guinea pig of that.
Yeah, I really feel it, because I really love it. I really love it, and it feels physical. And it's I didn't know about the Xenakis, but it makes sense, because it also made me think of Kaya Sariaho.
Yeah,
with these, which is someone who I also never really know what it's being played on.
No, but I think that's the interesting mystery sometimes about electronics, where you feel like, is there a way to not trying to do a copy or model of reality, but also to capture something that is organic and somehow that is an extension of reality.
Yeah.
And eventually that is visual, and that creates more engagement in a mysterious way. It's very similar to film score as well, because I don't know, I have a question for that about the invite, but when I did this score, I really did it specifically for this tableau. So everything was motivated and driven by these illusions and dancers, and something very, very physical, with transformation on stage. And then after having done all of this process, it's only at that point that I kind of listened to it remotely from its function, and that I kind of discovered like a new visions or new images from it. And I wanted to ask you, like, how for the invite, how much of it, especially when I spoke about this interaction with dialogue, how much of it was so precisely driven by the exact timing and things of what you were the scenes you were looking, or if you were more kind of disconnected from it, and then pasting it to picture after.
I start off disconnected, just to almost get into the world of it. I'll write a larger piece of music, just so I can find melodies and ideas, and sometimes even improvise, just to get my head in the place. Then I'll go to picture and be very, very, very precise. And maybe 15% are happy accidents that happen sometimes. Sometimes a piece of music coincide with a head turn or something like that. But for this, I felt like it had to be very precise. And I worked with an engineer called Alec Feldman, and we would be at the computer, and I'll be rewriting things. And then this cellist, Kiran, who was incredible, really quick. And so we would then in person, I would almost like rescore, like having the music.
Did you play part of
Yeah.
of it before she performed it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Did anything make the cut, or you
Yes, like the parts where you're like, what is that? That's me. But yeah, you know, it's such a dialogue heavy film.
Yeah.
It was kind of, yeah, I just felt like it had to be.
That's what I love about the cello. I've got this story. We needed like a solo for a very sad scene in Tron, this kind of flashback scene. I actually remember that Mitchell Lieb, which was the music executive at Disney, made the best studio comment ever for a scene like that, which we kind of like showed him, and he was like, "It's not sad enough." And so and he was completely right, you know, and so. You know, it's not like, oh, you know, all these like theories and stuff. And so we really put it to I think it's this Adagio for Tron bit in the album.
Oh, yes.
With the cello solo. And so we really trashed everything and redid it. And I was like, okay, the great thing about cello, especially for its range, is that it feels one of maybe my favorite expressive solo instrument, you know, without doing any kind of chords. And the violin can be like that, but the range of the violin is so limited. But that at that point it's too intense, and it doesn't feel like the range of emotion can be really, because then it becomes almost a lament,
exactly,
violent thing. There's this other thing also for which I love about symphonic instruments. Part of Daft Punk was working with electronic instruments, and it takes so much effort to bring soul to the sound of those synthesizers, sometimes just on with harmonies and stuff. And what I love about symphonic instrument is that you can have like an orchestra and you can say, okay, everybody play unison G, and then everybody play that note, and you've got like goosebumps.
Yeah, that's true.
And so there doesn't exist like that with electronic instruments. And what I love on that minimal aspect is that I think there's a moment in the film where there's just like a fifth with the cello at the right point. So it's like a harmony, you know, polyphony is just like these two notes. It's maybe with Penélope Cruz shot or towards the end.
Yes.
And we're just like, and that becomes like super emotional, where after all that monophonic lines, you know, it's just like, you know, just those two notes together, as that the almost like the birth of polyphony is like, okay, then polyphony equals harmony. I mean, or duophony, you know, is the beginning of harmony of these, you know, two elements that are like in connection. And I was like, wow, you know, having been such in a monophonic world for the whole part of the film, duophony happens, and it becomes like really moving just by that thing. And that's what I love about minimalism, how by using so little elements, the first steps of it, you know, we live in such a maximalist, saturated world, then this kind of like homeopathic dosage of notes and things, it's almost an opportunity to reconnect. But
something about the stillness, I thought about that a lot too in the film, because in the film the characters are very not still, you know, they are agitated and always kind of talking and stuff. And so I towards the end I liked, it was funny, even as me, just the person writing music, felt like a excitement or a calmness to be able to, you know, land and breathe. I wanted to ask, for this new score, was it music first?
The ballet? No, music second.
Okay.
So I Damien, the choreographer, and Koei were workshopping in Kyoto. It's really interesting because it really reminded me of those special effects shops in the Valley in LA, you know, where we used to do the robot helmets and with all those special effects, and moles and latex and pyrotechnics and here they were really in his artist studio with the dancers working on different techniques. A lot of the ballet is works with this kind of oil on the body and glitter and transformation and super interesting visceral elements. A lot of haze and smoke and almost like creating clouds. And so they were doing all these techniques almost in a lab and sending me like snippets, pictures or videos. Oh, wow. And I was in France. And it's funny because, there's this moment in the ballet where those are like there's glitter rains, of like colors, and it's all in silent, and a lot of those harmonic and like textural exploration on the record was just me trying to say, okay, what, almost like Foley artist, but like harmonic Foley, where you feel as a musician, I'm doing the Foley. This is like a silent film, and what can be the sound of those like, colorful glitter rains, and how can you try, almost as if, we're going back to, we were saying, now when I listen to it disconnected, I'm like, okay, I can envision like a musician performing on a weird instrument. But at the time I was actually trying to find the sound of almost the sound of what they could emit, this glitter, as if they were the instrument on the contact of when it goes on the bodies of the dancer. So I don't think I would have had most of these ideas if it was not for the evocative power of the ballet that I was watching.
Was Mythologies the same?
No, Mythology was music first.
Okay.
So Mythology was different because it was I'm not good enough, I think, and capable of being able to do score symphony, symphonic score to picture, like, musically I'll just have like a semi-quaver and between that dialogue line and do it. So with Mythology, the fun thing, it was like I was totally tripping. I didn't know how to orchestrate, and I wanted to orchestrate. So for 2 years, I stopped. This was pretty much around lockdown, and I read all these orchestration treaty, Rimsky-Korsakov and Berlioz, and like actually my favorite orchestration treaty is not an orchestration treaty. It's probably the Ravel orchestration of pictures at an exhibition of Mussorgsky, because basically you have the original piano line, and then you have this orchestration under, and you can just see the genius of just how Ravel is just like turning what is just a simple piano and the choices that he makes, and it's works better than a thousand words. But for Mythology, I basically wrote this entire ballet in my head. It was a commission, but the choreographer Angelin had asked me to do it. And so I scored to this ballet that did not exist, and then I handed him the music, and then he choreographed a completely different ballet, which was his own, and this was a great surprise. But it's funny how it's the opposite, where one is you do it with a picture, and then after you discover like a new thing in your head, like in the second phase, and here it was like, okay, it was a total fantasy, and then it was different. But for your scores, is it one or the other in the same way, or how does that work?
Sometimes, I find, maybe you agree with this, it's almost like there's been many different ways it's happened. Sometimes it's things, the film's half finished and there's a lot of temp, and or maybe I've sent things, but I think I prefer either or, because I think you can then fully commit to, either commit into the fact that it's music first. You can kind of go in with almost in this free way, but also when it exists already, I also find that quite freeing. in a weird.
It really depends how precise it needs to be. I feel that I agree, but I feel it's something. There's something a little bit intimidating about both.
Yes.
There's this level of intimidation where you have nothing. It's a bit intimidating. It's like, okay, where do I start? Actually, this is a good song. Oh, I could put it on this movie, and it's like, oh no, why don't I keep it for myself? And it's this. And then on the other hand, when you have this finished cut, and of people that I always think, sometimes directors are approaching me and they've worked for years on a project and they have rewrites and there's like cinema is teamwork, like hundreds of people working on something for so many times, and they're like, okay, this is the cut and we need like a score in like 2 months, and and to me that's probably the most intimidating, even though but at the same time, when you have like a great film and then you like put any kind of music and say, okay, I feel I'm already there in some way. But I think I would have been very intimidated with the invite process, probably because of the precise nature of it.
There was definitely a moment where I thought, what have I got myself into? I don't know. Scoring is an interesting thing. How long after the Tron process did you start making music again, or was it not so detached? Was it like continuous or?
I think it was a weird commitment, the Tron thing, because it was the first foray into orchestral music. We were lucky of not having any temp music because we're really in the process, but at the same time, it was almost a poison, like a trap where where you're lucky, but basically it's like Hotel California. You can check in anytime you want, but you can never leave. Because there was this thing where it's like, okay, so here we're coming. The film hasn't even started. We're big fans of the original Steven Lisberger film. And we have this opportunity to really set the tone. The director, Joe, already asked us for some music even before starting editing. And even it was a big studio film, and there's this legal editing window before the director shows it to the studio. And we're completely in the process, with the director doing all of these early things. But it almost felt, we ended up, the picture was changing. We had to always change. We ended up working a year and a half on this project. That became almost like a maze where you can, how are we going to get out of being able to reach the end of this narrative maze. It was really from a narrative and emotional perspective. And it's funny you mentioned opera for the invite, because that was really. Maybe Olivia has an operatic face, that inspires that. But looking at Jeff Bridges, in this kind of grand thing, there was this thing, it's going to be like a Verdi kind of grand presentation. But the interesting thing is after this process, being really in charge of a project of that scale with so many musicians, somehow I felt confident enough and excited to work with other musicians for other projects after. So the benefit of the Tron score on a very personal creative level was how we got from Tron to Random Access Memories, because we're like, we've made before Tron, all the music we had made was just the two of us in my bedroom, and in a very super intimate level, not letting anyone in the process, even until it's mastered, and then even if it's mixed and mastered, showing it to the record label or the people and friends and family, and here because the Tron was already this kind of collaborative process, like film work. That's what Random Access Memory was. I really consider that Random Access Memories was like a film without cameras, basically, the entire process of it. And somehow at the same time, Tron happened in the middle of this process. So we had made demos at the studio, in Paris at Gang in 2008 and 9 after the Pyramid. And I was not happy with the sound of all these demos. And I think there was some kind of cool grooves. But so I was like saying to Guy-Man, we need to trash everything in production wise. And then we say, oh, stop, Disney, we can be part of our childhood fantasy of scoring Tron. And then after the Tron thing, there was all these demos, which is like, okay, maybe we can go to or stay in LA and have these amazing session musicians and turn it into something with this discovery about what I was telling about the magic of human beings performing, and how sometimes when you press a synth key, it doesn't move easily, and even less on a laptop or a computer, with that process. But at the same time, there was not a pause there.
Okay.
For me, the pause was after Random Access Memories, which was, a song like Touch with Paul Williams had 250 tracks on Pro Tools. We had to divide. It was a 70 channel board, Neve, and we had to divide in 3 parts to be able to mix it. And so after that, I remember I was literally for 2 years, I had like one piano with like a GoPro that I like mounted on my piano. I didn't touch one synthesizers. I didn't open like any machines, and I just like didn't want to write and just like press a record, and because I tend to have hard time deciphering it. I mean, it's actually a good advice for people to, if you play and improvise and stuff, and to be able to, I find as almost like a voice note, of ideas on the piano. But then after you're like, okay, what was this chord? It's like a 7. It's like, okay, there's like 9 fingers.
This happens
and
a lot.
and then with this, you add all these like clips of like QuickTime clips of just
looking down,
and you have your fingers. And actually, you can open them and then cut and paste. And
that's brilliant.
You should.
That's really good.
Probably you can do it with many different instruments, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. Just going back to when you said about Touch, how many tracks?
250.
Right, and that was mixed in at the desk.
They're not playing at the same time. The song obviously around the same time. There's around 7. At the same time, there's probably around 70 tracks. Because and you got to understand that Homework and Discovery were mixed on these 8 channels small Mackie desk like that. So 4 mono, 4 stereo, like 12 channels, and that's as much as I can handle in terms of mixing myself. But here, at that point, it's all this thing about this record. Was like, okay, I'm never going to do a record in that process again, because it's almost like you lose your half of your brain cells in the process. But so that's why. That's why there's really this admiration that I have for going back to minimalism, and when I see a score that you did like that for the Invite, which is just one instrument and not a polyphonic one, basically with monophonic, I'm like, wow, that's actually a really minimal and radical approach that I find. And at the same time, as you were explaining earlier, I think, where you're like, oh, there's a lot of time where I was like, okay, how I'm going to be able to get there. But there's one thing that's obviously obvious. It's easier when the film is good as well. Because you feel with music, sometimes I feel music is here to help to that process. But I feel here that there's when I watched the film a couple of days ago, I was like, okay, that's probably one reason why why you were able to succeed with so little elements is the fact that it works. You know?
Yeah, that's true. That reminds me of I remember. I mean, when would this be? Maybe like 7 years ago or so. I was scoring a film, and I was relatively new to scoring, and there was a scene. You know, there's always that one scene where I had to score over and over again. You know, a million times.
Was it because you didn't like it, or because it was not working for filmmakers?
Yeah, it wasn't working for the filmmakers, and a friend of mine that is a producer that works in film, speaking to them about it, and I was like, you know, I was like losing my mind at this point, and they told me that it's because the scene doesn't work. So it's like it's never, you're never gonna do it, you know.
No, but that's the thing that I find it's really hard about that. Is like it's almost like using music as a patch, you know, as a band-aid. To feel you know, like you're gonna make that work, and it's really complicated sometimes.
So you just screened a 20th anniversary of Electroma?
Yes, for Tribeca Film Festival. So we did Electroma in 2006 that I co-directed, and I was the cinematographer and operator. Thank you. We had like film prints, 35mm film prints, but we never had a restoration process or a DCP to really be able to show it 20 years later. And so there was this online copies there, but just bad telecine and not something proper. So the whole process was really to go back at photochem in the lab and to get as close as possible to the color and of the emulsion of the 35mm print, going back and forth to really match every shot, like you would see where there was the Kodak Vision Premiere print. And we screened it yesterday, and the film obviously resonated in such a different way. For Electroma, at some point, I stopped making music for 2 years and wanted to study cinematography and to try to develop a relationship in the same way I had done with drum machines and synthesizers, and doing it with a 35mm camera and saying, oh, you know, an experiment. And so that era for me in that movie is really linked to a very deep a connection with my love of cinematography.
Amazing. How long did it take to shoot?
11 days. So it was the first shoot was 5 days for what was supposed to be a music video. We were shooting in the desert, and we had runners going to LA for the dailies, you know, at the time. So it was not like, oh, you know, here's the memory card. 3 days in, we received the first dailies. We looked at it and was like, wow, let's make a midnight feature. Let's just like, okay, it was supposed to be a Human After All music video. And somehow we got to turn a 3-minute music video into an hour and 20 minutes film. That's probably why people think it's so long and boring, because nothing happened, because we were already like experimenting with stretching time to the max, you know.
It must feel very different looking at it now.
It's funny because I've been doing interviews these last few days or weeks, and people ask me about the eclectic, you know, diversity of projects, you know, from Daft Punk to symphonic stuff to abstract electronic, and actually, I must say how much I love your music, and I actually love the range of what you do in so many, you know, from the score stuff to your songs to vocal. I was still this morning listening to the Essex House MP3 thing that came out that I found is so cool, you know, and this kind of ravey thing. But what I love, because it feels like it's really speaking to me on almost as the approach is, it's, you know, where sometimes it feels like you're doing a song or a piece of music, and that defines you, you know, like, okay, this is what I am. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's a bit limiting, you know, almost. But what I love is that, in fact, and I think it's the same for me, but when I listen to music, I can obviously, you know, listen to Essex House, or then listen to the fields, and then it's the range and the space between those two pieces of music that I find are defining. Yourself more than the music itself,
right?
Almost because it's just an ability to kind of like take the walls and just like spread them more than being almost defined by just a work.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I think it's very. Yeah, it feels like it's very similar. I feel like that's
cool.
how you operate.
Yeah, because I feel I like contrast, and I like the idea of you take a rolling and scratching or a rave track or like a techno music, and then touch. You were speaking about touch. It can get like more different than that, and it's that range almost. I don't know if it's almost like provocative or just like. Or being in a way of saying that I love this coexistence of avant-garde and more traditional forms and modern things and ancient things and retrofuturism and somehow I think in your music it's a really good example here, the fact of speaking. Again, I was mentioning Essex House MP3, which is this super free form kind of demo-ish, ravey thing, and then you doing this cello score, very pure for this film, so it feels really inspiring to not stay as artist in the box that either the outside put you in, or either that sometimes you deliberately go and say, okay, this is I started to do that, and this is how people see me, and then I'm gonna continue because I'm encouraged to do so.
Yeah, because I always feel that I always think about this thing which is like the human filter, and I think that a genuine curiosity, that not to call other people's curiosities disingenuous, but I feel like a curiosity that is almost like has how can I explain it? has gotten to someone almost like by accident or by just living and various tastes, not necessarily through maybe a dominant aesthetics and culture or something, but a curiosity. I always feel like that is the thing that ties people's work together. Like when I'm a fan of people who have, if you were to, like lay down all the things they did in a row and maybe they look extreme when they're put together. It's like the thread is this curiosity.
I completely agree. I think not only, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah.
So I feel, there's something else also in this very highly algorithmic world right now, which is based on recommendations and predictability. I feel that curiosity level is really bringing this sense of unpredictability.
Yeah.
So I think it's vital right now to as human being to focus and especially nowadays on the unpredictable nature of ourselves from a very genuine and spontaneous level. None just like to be unpredictable for unpredictable.
Exactly.
But so that's the first thing. And then the second thing I really realized, this was maybe one of the last resort to hack the system in some way, this algorithmic system. When for Mythology, when Mythology was released on streaming platforms, I started to see, when you're listening to the song, and then after it says, "Oh, you just listened to that song. You might want to listen to Justice or Prokofiev," and how it's like creating those links, which do not exist anymore in some level. Obviously, I really believe that the eclecticism is in every audience, but that it's almost a need to classify things and to put them in boxes.
Yeah.
And And so it feels like there's a benefit to surprise yourself as an artist and to get out of your comfort zone, because at least it's creating those new connections in some way. Well, Dave, it was great speaking to you.
Yeah, same.
I'm really excited to see where your curiosity takes you next.
Thank you. Likewise.